I want to bring in NBC Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander. Joel Rubin served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Obama administration and has been involved in a number of White House briefings on Russia. And Amna Nawaz is Chief Correspondent for the PBS NewsHour. She was in the room with the president yesterday. Peter, before we get to the impact here, obviously this administration has said it's still looking for a diplomatic off-ramp for Vladimir Putin. Tell us about this call.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, obviously, this just reinforces what the president has said over the course of the last several weeks and certainly highlighted in his comments yesterday. The president speaking at 2:30 in a secure call this afternoon with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. This is significant, of course, because Scholz had just met with Vladimir Putin yesterday, and the president said that he wants to give diplomacy every possible chance here. But, Chris, to the point that you were noting as we started this conversation, the president was talking about those energy prices yesterday and the potential impact on Americans' wallets, how they could see a sacrifice. You played the key quote. He said he's not going to pretend that this will be painless. He acknowledged the impact on energy prices. So to walk you through the way this would play out, Russia obviously is a major exporter of oil and gas. And even though the U.S. gets very little of its oil from Russia, just about 3%, an invasion and the fierce U.S. sanctions, frankly, European, Western and U.S. sanctions that would follow would likely drive up already high oil and gas prices in the global market. That fuels inflation worldwide and has a ripple effect for us here right now. Drivers, you've seen it as you pass the pump. They are already seeing the national average for gas prices right now at $3.50 a gallon. That is $1 more per gallon than just a year ago. And obviously a war in Ukraine would only send that figure higher. We've pressed the White House on this issue. They say all options are on the table to try to address rising oil prices. The U.S. has already released about 40 of the 50 million barrels it promised to release late last year. And officials here have also not ruled out temporarily suspending the federal gas tax. Chris, that's 18 cents for every gallon. Several Democrats, especially those in tight re-election races, frankly, Senators Kelly of Arizona, Hassan of New Hampshire, they have pushed that idea, but so far it's getting a pretty cold reception in Congress, Chris.
Yeah, Amna, I read that yesterday, and again, you were in the room with the president as kind of a reality check to Americans. Okay, this is one of the reasons why you should care. Talk a little bit about how the White House is approaching this messaging on, a place, frankly, that is a far, far ways away and that a lot of Americans don't really understand, or many people don't understand the complexities of why this is so important.
Chris, this is why one of the questions that came up in the White House briefing that followed the president's remarks that I was also in came up. Jen Psaki was asked, why is the president addressing the American people in this way today? And she made exactly that point in answer to your question, which was Americans have been following the news. They have been seeing the drumbeat of war. They have been following the diplomacy and all the updates that reporters have been providing, that officials have been providing. And this was the president making the case to them about why they should care and also why this matters to them. There is, of course, the potential economic fallout, as Peter was outlining right there. Americans could feel that in their pocketbooks, in their wallets. We've already seen gas prices hit about an 8-year high so far, and there could be more repercussions to come. But this is also taking up a lot of energy on the Hill. I want to share with you, of course, we know that there is a unity among Senate Democrats and Republicans that some kind of sanctions do need to move forward, but there is a big divide on how quickly and how hard to go. And that's a tough place for the U.S. to be. We heard the president say yesterday he's united with the U.S. and NATO allies. They have a package of crippling sanctions ready to go. We don't know exactly what those would entail, but we do know there are similar efforts that they're trying to push through here in Congress. But the president's message yesterday was Americans have to know not only this could impact them, but also this is important, that defending democracy, defending liberty around the world is not without cost, but it's necessary for the U.S. as a world leader to engage in that battle. Chris?
And Joel, Putin continues to say that on one hand, he's willing to keep talking, but then he's also doubling down on what is his core demand, which is to guarantee that Ukraine never be allowed to join NATO, something, of course, the U.S. says is a non-starter. So where does this push for diplomacy go from here beyond what we just saw minutes ago, the report from the White House about the phone call with the German chancellor?
Well, Chris, diplomacy has to continue, as the president said, certainly. But in the case of Vladimir Putin, the approach has to be as robust going forward as it has been in the past several months. He needs to be condemned consistently and publicly, globally isolated as he has been, and understand that there is punishment down the road. And this sanctions package being a core part of that, making that clear that there will be pain for Russia if he does not withdraw his troops and engage in serious, real diplomacy, not show diplomacy, not occasionally saying some troops will be moved that hasn't been verified to try to calm tensions and then maybe do another maneuver militarily. Real diplomacy, and that means pulling his troops back from their posture right now on the border with Ukraine. And so this continued pressure on Putin is critical to actually have real diplomacy.
Joel, Tom Friedman wrote in a piece for the New York Times that for Putin, there's only one calculation. And he says, quote, if I go ahead with a full-scale invasion and it goes bad, wrecking Russia's economy and resulting in Russian soldiers returning home in body bags from a war with fellow Slavs, could it lead to my own downfall? Is that a worse bet for Putin today than it might have been a week or even a month ago?
Well, the Russian people certainly don't understand why this is happening. In report after report, engagements and watching the reactions, that Russian people are being propagandized internally in their country by Vladimir Putin under false pretense for launching a potential invasion of Ukraine. And so the Russian people will suffer immediately on day one. 40% of their revenues come from oil exports. That will be cut down. They will be isolated in terms of their economic engagement with the world, their financial sector. They're going to feel it immediately, and they're going to look around and say to Putin, why did you put us into this position? This is on Vladimir Putin. This is not on Joe Biden. This is not on Ukraine. This is on Vladimir Putin making a choice to do this. And the Russian people certainly aren't going to look well on that. I do have to add as well that for Vladimir Putin, there's only one person he really cares about, and that's him. And so if he feels that that pressure is too much, he's going to try to find a way to move out of this. But the pressure has to be consistent right now to get us to that place.
Joel, Peter, Amna, thanks to all of you. We've got